customers to interact to reduce some of our overheads around our preventative agenda and our whole systems approach, particularly around our Inspiring Communities programme, working across the county and the region, and how we've historically used that flexible and agile working to ensure that we're delivering for our residents and businesses. The plan in front now will be refreshed annually. We'll go forward to governance and audit and will be presented by Councillor Phil Callum, but very much owned by the Cabinet to make sure that we're driving forward for what we need to do to ensure that we are fit for the future. So you'll see those two recommendations which are there. That the Cabinet notes the draft productivity plan and guidance from, as it was then, Department 11 up, housing and communities. The Cabinet delegates to the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader to make any changes to refine the plan and publish on the Council's website and submit to the Department. I'm happy to take any questions at all. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for bringing this paper to Cabinet. I saw in the introduction there's a reference there to wasteful expenditure. I think probably that terminology might will be different, so I'd just be grateful if you can identify, have you identified any areas of wasteful that might be deemed better to call it unnecessary expenditure, and what's governance and audit. With my other hat on as chair of the Overview Scrutiny Commission, it might also be something useful potentially. I'm not advancing that forward at this stage to bring to the Commission. Thank you, Chairman.
That's great, thanks. I'll just give a couple of those questions to James. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Your reference to this going to governance and audit, that's an additional item we'll need to consider. Will there be guidelines issued as to what our role is in the event?
Brilliant. So work backwards. No, it's very much for you as an audit commission to use as one of the wider documents you use to ensure the strong governance and accountability of the council through its processes, procedures, particularly around some of our financial activities and our transformation programme. But it's not, and every council will do this differently. Some are taking it to their own scrutiny, some are being held purely by the council in its full activity, some are being held by Cabinet. So I think my approach with Councillor Cowan is we're twin tracking this to make sure that governance and audit have all of those tools and documents to hand to make sure that they're understanding what their role is and holding the council to account to making sure we're undertaking our activities effectively. But for us as a Cabinet to make sure we continuously improve, and that's why, as you do performance indicators and financial performance indicators, we bring this to Cabinet. I want to make sure this document continues to do so as well. In regards to wasteful expenditure, it's a really good challenge, and actually I think the culture indoctrinated from the Deputy Chief Executive and our 151 officer is that all of those budget holders must make sure that they're continuously reviewing where their expenditure is required, where that demand is, contract renewal from that perspective, and actually where is the value added for everything we are undertaking and spending. Here later on today, I'll need to continuously review all of our council services in that regard. I think there have been localities when DLUC introduced this, Councillor Clark, where other councils have been undertaking wasteful expenditure in which they haven't been reviewing contracts particularly or been undertaking inappropriate contract tendering. But I think Breckland has a really strong procurement and contracts team and the work and the culture which the 151 has undertaken across the whole of those budget holders and of course the council. I think we're in a good place, but the productivity plan is only one of those tools. With, as I said earlier in response to Councillor Kyler, we need to make sure that G&A, which you sit on, has a really important role to play in that as well. Any further questions on this item? If not, I move recommendations. All in favour? Thank you very much. That is agreed. Brilliant. We will now, we're streaming live again. We will now move on to item 10, which is the car park strategy. Just to confirm, we commenced this item previously. We had to pause due to some IT glitches. We will be starting this item over again. So I'd like to ask Councillor Sarah Suggett to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone, again. And I'm presenting this morning this proposal to Cabinet as Councillor Hewitt is unfortunately unavailable today. We're very aware that the proposal before you today is a very important subject, and the provision of public car parking will be a sensitive area for members, residents and businesses in Breckland. So we would like to thank members for your careful consideration. Local authorities across the country are facing financial pressures. Breckland is no different, and this has been the impetus behind reviewing our services and funding methods in order to maintain a balanced budget. Currently, our 30 car parks with around 2,200 spaces cost this council £450,000 every year. That's almost £500,000 a year of financial burden. And while car parking provision is clearly an important issue, there are many other priorities and aspirations for our residents and businesses. So we need to find a sustainable way to fund these services, maintain good value, and protect our budget for the broad range of services that our residents and businesses deserve and need. I'm sure many of you here, and those following this remotely, will be aware that this subject has recently been covered in the local press and discussed on social media. Often, unfortunately, this has included some disinformation or misunderstanding of the details of the proposals being considered today. So I'd like to personally reassure members that from the outset we have worked to ensure that this proposal is transparent and that the evidence this proposal is based upon is easily available. With that in mind, on Thursday last week we proactively brought this proposal to our Overview and Scrutiny Commission, where members from across the political spectrum were able to scrutinise the proposal and hear more from our expert consultants on their study and recommendations. This was a really constructive session and provided an opportunity for more information to be shared about the cost-neutral nature of the model, why we are moving forward with this proposal now, alternative options that have been explored, and what we intend to do to minimise any potential impact on residents, businesses, shoppers, visitors and town centre workers. So I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank members from across the council for engaging in this session. We know that our decision making needs to be based on objective evidence, and that is why we engaged Parking Matters to conduct a feasibility study, examining our car park usage and management. Their study revealed a number of issues, including a lack of peak period spaces and restricted churn levels, which significantly impacts our market town's turnover and trade. So as well as helping the council to balance its books while maintaining car parking provision and funding for other essential services, the proposed new car parking policy will help to address the issues identified in the study. We propose to introduce car parking charges across all 5 of our market towns, with rates reflecting each town's size and offering. The proposal would see charges similar to, or in many cases more affordable than, comparable market towns. Each market town will have one car park offering the first hour's parking for free, with tariffs between 50p and £1 for the first chargeable hour thereafter. In addition to the provision of the 1 hour of free parking each day in one car park per town, we propose that this be extended further on market days to help bolster footfall at our markets. We also want to support each town's headline annual events, and we will do so by offering free parking days in each of our towns at points during the year. We propose that blue badge holders will have additional time to leave after their parking period, and we suggest introducing a permit system for residents and businesses so they are not adversely impacted. We expect the shape of much of this will be further developed as a result of the public consultation that will soon follow today's decision should Cabinet approve the proposal being put forward. Ultimately, the proposal aims to make car parking Breckland self-sustaining and improve space availability for shoppers and visitors when they need them, which will support local businesses. We recognise that this is not an easy decision, but the modest parking fees will ensure sustainable parking services going forward, while enabling this council to continue to invest in vital services for our communities. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Lovely, thank you much indeed. So I'm happy to take questions and comments from across. So anybody first, I've got Councillor Webb first, please, and then Councillor Bowles, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Right, I'm going to be truthful here, and I'll say that I felt the same as some of you, really worried about the proposal to charge for car parking when it was first brought up. However, I have listened to all the facts and reasons, and I now totally understand that none of our car parks are free, and the money to pay for them need to come from somewhere. The car parks are costing all our residents, as Sarah said, a total of £450,000 a year, which is not a small amount. Yet not all our residents use the car parks, and yet they all have to pay for them, which isn't fair as far as I'm concerned. I am proud to be a member of a council which offers an excellent service to our residents, whilst prioritising our most vulnerable residents, which I know is what we all want. We support in so many ways: temporary accommodation, domestic abuse, support hardship groups, and much, much more. So the cost of running the car parks of £450,000 a year needs to be met from somewhere, so we as a council do not get into debt. The question is, what would you all choose to do? Well, reduce our services to our residents, for example. For instance, not collecting and emptying bins so often. I'm sure if we started doing that on a monthly basis rather than every fortnight, it would be very popular. Not investing in our towns as part of the Future Brethren programme. Should we stop supporting our vulnerable community? Should we, in fact, sell the family silver, as some councillors have mentioned, which would help in a short-term basis, but what about when it's all gone? Do we increase all our residents' car tax bill to cover the shortfall, or do we close some of our car parks and sell them off? Do we continue to draw the money out of our finances until no money is left, and then what? No, none of these is right, morally, and not the correct answer for us as a responsible district council. The proposal is fair to all. Originally, no free car parking proposal was included, but I, along with other cabinet members, fought to ensure the proposal now includes the 1 hour free car parking in one car park in every town, every day, and 3 hours free on market days, plus options for additional free parking on event days. This will allow for popping into town to do some shopping, collecting prescriptions, supporting our local businesses, and still support our town on market days. The overtime period chargeable rate is low, so as to cover the running of the car parks, and when you hear about what it's going to cost, it's not an astronomical amount to other areas. Residents and businesses have expressed concern to me recently that a lot of the car parking spaces are full of cars which remain all day, stopping people to come and visit and shop. This would be a way of increasing the churn, encouraging more visitors to come and spend money in our towns. During the following consultation, which I know will be happening, I will be pushing for the consideration for resident permits and business permits, as these are the issues that residents have been talking to me about so far. Finally, I'd like to say, I would like to reiterate there is no such thing as a free car park. It's a myth. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm here today not just in my capacity of Brecon Councillor, but also County Councillor for Wotton. So I raised the point of scrutiny last Thursday that the original recommendation from this report's consultant was that Wotton car parks should be exempt from charges. I'm afraid I still cannot see what has materially changed since that original recommendation was made to justify the inclusion of Wotton in the charging model at this time. Furthermore concerning were Councillor Hewitt's claims that were Wotton to be exempt from charges, the alternative was that Kitty Close car park would be developed on. This has given much consternation to businesses and residents of Wotton at best, and although not impressed, I'm hoping it was just an attempt to shut down argument. But at worst, if true, then as County Councillor, it greatly concerns me, particularly given the not inconsiderable work and investment between this council and the County Council to bring forward the Middle Street Heritage Quarter project, which is identified as a priority in Wotton Medical Plan, and significant regeneration works for Wotton High Street, along with the financial input into the proposed digital and media centre for Wotton. The County Council has identified the Middle Street project as ready to go and a priority for funding should the county devolution deal go ahead. And I would suggest its sustainability is dependent on its proximity to the Kittle Close car park. So my questions are, in Councillor Hewitt's absence, could I please have assurance that the Kittle Close car park is not earmarked for sale for housing development during the term of this council's administration, and that won't happen whether charging is implemented in Watton or not? And has weight and relative consideration been given to the fact that Watton is not directly accessible for shoppers from a national highways arterial route, as all the other market towns in Breckland are? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor House. And yeah, in Paul's absence, I will try and answer your concerns. So you're quite right. In the initial report, the consultants did suggest that Watton would remain out of the car parking structure. After the conversations had around the local issues around all of the market towns, it wasn't just Watton. Taking into account the Watton neighbourhood plan, the Norfolk County Council's transport and rural strategies, what's described in those over the bigger picture over the coming years, the redevelopment of the Middle Street, like you alluded to, there are some change that they are all going to have impacts which will change people's behaviour as to how they currently are using the market town. And by us having a strategy in place in the car parks will help us be able to pursue those further without having to go back and just single out Watton again when the habits around Watton and the car parking habits of people change. I think it was an important piece in Watton's neighbourhood plan where there was speak about the on-street parking provision, and there's quite a lot of on-street parking provision in Watton, and how that comes down and it blocks up the traffic lights down, causing congestion, which does block up flow, and it does make down that end of the high street a hazard. So taking into account working with County Council, trying to do something with that on-street parking and try and reduce some of that to try and help the flow through the town, will then in turn help the town and the safety aspect around that particular junction. The comment that Councillor Hewitt made around the selling off of car parks, I think it was him trying to prove a point. If we don't have, or the car parks which won't be included in the strategy, we'll have to look at something to be done with them, because the identified need or demand is still there, that they are a cost to the council. So if it isn't something that we will be looking at putting them within part of this regime, another alternative would have to be looked at. And it's not just, there's about 3 car parks which have been not included in this strategy. If there are other options that we need to look at for car parks, either now or in the future, we will do so. But it was highlighting a point to just suggest that there are other alternatives what could happen on those car parks, although that's not something what we feel is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Suckett, for your presentation. Firstly, I was at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission on Thursday when we had presentations from the parking matters experts, and it's obviously very clear that the Cabinet recognised the sensitivity of this proposal in view of the age agenda today, but also the large number of officers and councillors present from the executive on Thursday. Going back, first of all, I'm speaking on behalf of the Labour group at Breckland's opposition group, which represents, as it happens at the moment, 25% of the total cohort of councillors. I have to say, when this first emerged as a press release, I'm sure many people were surprised that it emerged this way, because when we had the budget discussions in February, we all came out, we were going to have a balanced budget, etc., etc. And we then had these references of these cost pressures. So, leaving aside suggestions people have made about the timing, I've made several comments. One is that we all pay for certain things that we don't use all the time, none of the time, or some of the time. So I think that's that's a bit of a false flag argument. It did emerge in scrutiny in terms of responses from officers and also Councillor Hewitt, that you are actually consulting not on the principle of charging, but on its implementation and how that's implemented. That's going to feature very heavily in residents' minds and businesses across all the market towns. It seems from the paper, I'm sure you will be writing to members about this as well as your answers today, but how you're going to approach, if this is approved, how you're going to approach that consultation, what weight you're going to give to residents and businesses, are you going to actually take any notice of it, and also if this goes ahead, when it's implemented, how you will then go to review the operation of it and the fairness or otherwise, and things like those people disabled, effect on businesses and towns. It does seem to us in our group to be a little bit disconnected from town delivery plans, and if you look at an item later on the agenda we've got around strategic infrastructure, there's reference there to the marketplace in, for example, Durham, which you would pick up, pedestrianisation increasing the so I can see this is coming up again. So one is, what are you actually consulting on? Are you going to be, you mentioned the towns, obviously it's the town councils that will be affected, particularly in terms of local congestion, and then I'm also worried about the spillover effect in terms of residents parking and any discussions taking place with the county. Town councils may also have their own local spaces, but my guesstimate is that it won't just be people who live near a car park who walk in town, but people who come in from specifically, not just on market days, from villages and elsewhere. It will have an impact in taking money out of some people's pockets anyway. In terms of its operations, there's a lot of detail there about when you're going to actually consult and how you're going to consult, and will you actually put the evidence, the actual report, the final full report, 153-page map, that available. Councillor Hewitt seemed to indicate it would be there as part of the cabinet page, which you can go back and look. If you're going to have the detail, it may need to go, I suggest, beyond the frequently answered questions which you will be putting up. So I'm disappointed in the way this has come out, and at this particular time. I acknowledge what you're saying about exemptions and permits, etc. And I think obviously my group and other councils, I'm sure, will want to go through this in even more detail on how this is actually going to really work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr, for your points. I can box some of the things off around the consultation, and then I will pass them some of the other details of that over to Ralph, if that's okay. So as part of the consultation, it will look to start to get implemented around about October time. There's a whole load of legal works which need to be done behind the scenes before that can actually go out. You've alluded to the frequently asked questions, which is a page that we've got on the website, which is where anybody can go and have a look, which is where we're discussing what we're doing, and it has some frequently asked questions. At the moment, that's all that landing page has, because the decision hasn't been made, not yet. Throughout this process, as things happen and as time moves on, we will ensure that page is updated so that that's got the most relevant up-to-date information which we've got on there. And I know the report was something which was asked about the other day. The technicalities around how we get that report onto that landing page might be tricky, but we will make sure that the link from today's cabinet meeting where that report is put on that page to make it easier for people to be able to find and get to. I think it's really important that we've had that really raw data that we've been able to have a look at and see, so that we can see exactly where we've come to make the decisions. And again, once we've had the consultation and we get that feedback, we want to be able to look at that. We will share that as much as we can with everybody. I don't know what the legal stuff is around that. I will pass that on to Ralph, but we will share as much information as what we can at the appropriate points for us to be able to do that. And I think it's really important for us to remember that we do have the committee system here. We do have the overview and scrutiny function, and it was something that we were able to take advantage of last week and bring this to members to be able to go through and have a look. And I will commit to ensure to working with you as the chair of scrutiny and other committees throughout the council to make sure that all members have got all the information what they need at all times throughout this process, because we do appreciate it is a difficult decision that we've all had to discuss. But if I've missed anything, I think it would be helpful for us to have a little bit more detail around how the consultation would work from Ralph. Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up. So just to give you a bit more information about how the consultation works. So just to put this in context, which will probably be helpful. So powers are granted to local authorities in the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984 to create car parking orders to document and enable the proper legal management of, in part, off-street car parking, amongst other sort of parking matters. And this is really because local authorities are deemed to have responsibility for safe and efficient traffic management in their areas, in their localities. And that was decriminalised from the police, many years ago. And under that act, local authorities have a requirement to consult on changes to or the creation of the said car parking orders in their localities. And there is a set procedure for doing that, for amending those. That is set out in further legislation, which is called the Local Authority Traffic Orders Procedure Regulations 1996. But that sets out exactly how the consultation should work. It sets out that the local authority should consult with two specific organisations, the Road Haulage Association and the Freight Transport Association, and any other relevant persons or bodies that the authority thinks it should consult that are likely to be affected by those changes. We are required to publish a notice of those of the proposed changes that we're making, and we are required to publish that in the local newspaper and at the relevant car parks. And we have to provide documents, the notice of the proposals, and the statement for the reasons for the changes. We have to make those available for public inspection at our offices. But the key part is obviously we have to consider all objections and representations received during that sort of consultation process. It's a legal requirement for us to do that and publish what has come in and what our response is to those representations. Previously, when we've done this type of consultation on any sort of car park orders type work before, we've made it very open and transparent. We haven't just limited it to just the said, associations in the legislation. We've made it open and transparent to all parties, residents, businesses, town councils, parish councils, to make representations, and they have done so, and we've done that sort of in a very open process via communication via our website, so people can leave the necessary comments. And I see absolutely no reason why we wouldn't follow that same process again, and that helps.
And just to quickly come back, because I forgot to box off, Harry, you raised a comment around the budget piece. And it was just to briefly say that what we have been looking at, which has just come through the committee system, is the midterm financial plan. I think it's really important to just re-emphasise that this isn't something which is looking to be implemented until the tail end of next year. So this is forward thinking, looking ahead, as opposed to boxing anything off on any current budgets that we've been looking at. Thank you.
Thanks. So I've got Councillor Askew, Councillor Clausen, Councillor Ashby, Councillor Crane, Councillor Kybird in that order. So we'll take you three together. So Councillor Askew, please.
Yeah, Chair, well, I mean, it's quite rare for me to attend a cabinet meeting these days, but I do believe the subject matter certainly warrants it. Nobody wants to charge for car parking, of course they do. Ever since I became a member of this council in 2003, the subject of charging for car parking in our market towns has been a topic of conversation. And here we are, 21 years later, not only talking about it, but actually preparing the way for it. Now, in all honesty, Breckland ought to have been charging for car parking years ago. But understandably, if it could be avoided, why would a council want to introduce any form of charging for residents? Breckland has held off while other Norfolk districts have been charging for years. Why? you. Breckland has held off while other districts have been charging for years. And while I live in Breckland, I have on occasion risked venturing into the charging district of South Norfolk. Other districts are available. And also on occasion parked my car in Diss and Wyndham, and I would say that 90+% of these instances resulted in free parking, as I've managed to conclude my business within the free 1 hour parking period. Even on the rare occasion I may have exceeded the free period, it may have cost me £1 for the privilege of the extra time. Now the Deputy Leader has outlined with aplomb the situation, 6-figure sums to maintain car parks, which will only increase. The sum which currently every Breckland taxpayer contributes to, whether they use a car park or not. Parking spaces taken all day by commuters to other major cities for free. Not exactly ideal for the high street, I suggest. Under the new proposals, this can still happen, say for a very modest charge, and for a hell of a lot less than what the parking would cost in the cities. Chairman, is it fair that taxpayers who don't even own a car, and those that do but don't use the car parks, still have to pay for their maintenance, or is it fair that the user pays? Chairman, I have had one resident in my ward challenge me on Breckland's proposal. I believe as a society we expect to pay to park these days, for the convenience. It's a bit galling, to say the least, when it costs a significant sum to park to attend an event or spend lengthier periods in major cities, but we live in rural Norfolk. We need the car to fulfil our everyday lives, whether we drive or are a passenger. Parking spaces need to be available for this to happen. Modest charges and free periods will have little impact on users' budgets, will create a churn to allow shorter and medium-term parking, and will cover the maintenance of the car parks. But for me, Chairman, more importantly than any of the above, important though it is that it will continue to enable Breckland to provide and assist with a host of discretionary services to residents, such as community funding and grants, food hubs, domestic abuse support, social isolation, mental health, community car schemes, health inequalities and well-being, welfare support, the list goes on. These services are growing ever more important across the district, and it's of paramount importance that this council is there to support residents in times of need, whatever the circumstance, and for me, it makes the principle of charging for car parking a no-brainer. Chairman, the time has finally arrived where Breckland Council, for the sake of its residents and the High Street, needs to charge for car parking. It's a serious and controversial. Thankfully, this administration is in the business of making difficult decisions for the greater good of its residents, rather than burying its head in the sand and shirking its responsibilities. Opposition is expected. Constructive is welcomed to help tailor the right scheme. Non-constructive, soundbite opposition for the sake of it will also be expected, but hopefully not too much. What I would say is that multi-payment methods must be available to users if any scheme goes ahead. It's important that we do not discriminate against our residents who still prefer or only have the facility to use cash for such transactions. And with that caveat, Chairman, I support the recommendation of Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Askew. Councillor Clausen, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, as portfolio holder for economic growth, I know how important the value of the support of our team office is to local businesses, both in our rural patches and on our high streets. We take this role very seriously, and it is something we can all be proud of. I think it's important for us to realise that our high streets are evolving for a very, very long time. Of course, COVID, some changing habits, and many businesses have had to adapt to new ways of working and changes in their customers' behaviours. And we have been alongside many of them to help them through. To this end, we have seen many banks leave the high street and retail outlets change their presence, for example. Some of these buildings have taken on by community schemes or service-based provisions. And we have even managed to get a community banking hub into what Again, we have been there ensuring the best outcomes are achieved for our market towns. I'd also like to remind everyone that as part of our Meanwhile Enterprise scheme, we have proactively been working with entrepreneurs and landlords to get businesses onto the high street and fill empty buildings. The results, I believe, are staggering, and we have seen 17 new entrepreneurs start up, and they have created over 20 jobs. Our team worked hard to secure funding and growth bids, including projects such as the Queen Lois Garden Theorem of Neaton and Watton, tree planting in Swaffham and Watton, and electric vehicle charging points in all of our towns, to name a few. We mustn't also forget the £20 million for the new town fund for theft, £2 million for Swaffham to invest in historic buildings, and all the fantastic opportunities in our future Brickland plan. Working with our colleagues at Norfolk County Council, we have also identified the biggest ever network of walking and cycling schemes across the district to connect our market towns. I'm proud of the relationships we have forged with our businesses, communities and partners, and believe if there is any further assistance needed, we are in a very good place to provide some guidance and support. I strongly feel that the proposal before us today is fair and is prudent, and I shall be supportive.
Lovely, thank you very much. Councillor Clausen, Councillor Ashby, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to endorse everything Councillor Ashby said earlier. I would like to commend Councillor Hewitt and the officers for putting together a very detailed and robust report, and for providing the opportunity for healthy debate at the overview and scrutiny committee last week that included the experts on the subject matter, where they could be questioned and tested, which I think is key for any key decision such as this. The reason why we're having this conversation is about balancing the budget, a statutory responsibility for this council, something that we have to take seriously. Because it's been well run for so long, we haven't had to make this particular decision. And it is a tough decision. As elected members and people with responsibility, we have to make tough decisions that aren't always popular. But it is about fairness. There are other ways of balancing the budget. We can increase tax for everybody. That wouldn't be popular. We could cut services for everybody. That wouldn't be popular. We could use our reserves once and then be back in exactly the same situation we're in now. Or we can provide a fair way of balancing the budget. I believe this is the right and fair way. I'm also really pleased that we analysed the results of the report and tailored them to suit our residents. For example, providing free hourly parking at every car park in every market town. That means that Attleborough, or Ward Member Odd, you can park in Attleborough for 2 hours for just 60p. As somebody who travels the country in my primary job, I can't park anywhere for free anymore. Looking at the report, there are a couple of key things that strike me. We're in the 10% of local authorities providing free parking. We're the only authority in Norfolk to provide free parking. There is a direction of travel. And it's commendable to this council that we've been able to hold off as long as we have. But charging for car parking is an inevitability. I'm pleased that blue badge holders will have more time. I'm pleased that there are recommendations for residential and business permits. And it's for all of these reasons that I'll be supporting the recommendation.
Councillor Ashby, Councillor Craig, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, may I say that I'm going to keep on very brief because my colleagues here, Councillor Askew, have reiterated what I would say anyway. As you would expect, I have read the reports of what's the overview of scrutiny meeting, where many questions, many important questions for our residents and businesses were answered. My role as Cabinet Member for Licensing and Environmental Health provides many services to residents and businesses, and I could spend 5 minutes listing them all and the dog water, taxis, environmental health, etc. All these services are chargeable on cost recovery only. There would not be an expectation of the public and they are paid for at the point of use. The services we offer, statutory or otherwise of record, are good and most would say excellent, and I would not want to see money budgeted for these services reduced and a decline in these services. We don't want a bronze service of record, we want a gold service for our residents and businesses. And Chairman, if I could just add that as elected members, sometimes we're asked to make decisions that are unpalatable but necessary. It's an uncomfortable position, but we must look at this objectively, using the evidence in front of us. And therefore I will be supporting this recommendation today.
Thank you, Councillor Greenwell. Councillor Clyburn, Councillor Cowan, and then Councillor Atwell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to say that I'm very pleased you have a very robust evidence base for this change of policy. My particular question is what will be the process for choosing the free 1 hour parking car park? Because there's obviously a trade-off between capacity and convenience where you've got a number of smaller car parks such as in
Thank you for your question, Councillor Clivert, and I would just like to just slightly correct, Councillor Ashby a moment ago suggested that there was 1 hour in all the car parks, and it is just the one concessioned car park in the market towns. And at the moment, the work has been done with the evidence which has been gathered, which, as robust as it is, we've highlighted a car park in each town with 2 in Thetford, just given the geographical layout of Thetford and the size of them, and where they're dotted around, it makes for a better sense for Thetford to have 2 of those car parks with concessions on. At the moment, we've highlighted those car parks in each town, and if anything comes back from the consultation to suggest to the contrary, we will go back and relook at that, and we will include board members in that conversation as we move forward. Thank you. Just to let you know which ones they are then, just for completeness. At the moment, in Attleborough, we have got the Queen Square car park. In Dereham, we've got Camper Road, Swaffham, Theatre Street, Wotton, Goddard's Court, and in Thetford, it's the Tanner Street and St Nicholas Street car park, currently programmed for the concession.
Thank you, Chairman. And we've heard some very eloquent debate thus far, and we also heard it at scrutiny. I was at scrutiny. I didn't partake of the debate, but I was listening very carefully to all that was said by both our consultants and our team here at Brecon. And I just want to review some of the comments and ideas and objectives that we've been debating and discussing. The first thing is we have been debating this for many years, and I agree with Councillor Askew. I can recall 21 years ago when I first sat on this council, this was a topic which was raised. But if I put that into context, 21 years ago the world was a very different place. Brecon was a very, very different place. We had significant reserves, we were doing things in a different way, and actually I would say we're doing better now than we were then, if I'm frank and honest. We were doing some remarkable things with revenues and benefits 21 years ago, but we've actually developed that sort of theme across the district. And you've heard today some of the ideas and aspirations that we've been able to make a reality in terms of vulnerability and so on. It's a very different world in which we live now, not least because time has moved on, but also, as you heard from Councillor Clausen, the fact that our high streets have really been impacted across the country, not just here in Brecon, by COVID. And shopping patterns have changed. Banks have left the high streets. We no longer have the drive and the need, most of us, to actually go into a town because those services no longer exist. So what have we done? We've actually commissioned a wide-ranging survey, and that survey has taken quite a few years actually to drive to the point that we see it today. It's a fulsome survey. It actually sets out, as we've heard, some ideas that we as councillors elected to represent both residents and the businesses in the district actually didn't like. And one of those fundamental things was you should actually be charging from minute one that someone drives into a car park. Well, Yes, that might work in some urban areas, it might work in some significant market towns, in holiday hotspots perhaps. But here in Brecon, that isn't the case at all. We have a different demographic, we have a different drive and a need. And I, as you will be aware, represent a rural part of that district, not a town. So I have a need to use our market towns, and I don't specifically use one market town. It rather depends upon why I want to go to the shop or the other facilities. So I actually travel and park in our different market towns. Many people in the rural areas don't have to do that. They actually have stuff delivered to them. One of the significant changes that we found. But each of our market towns has unique characteristics. Some of them are on major bus routes, some of them have a train route line running through them. Others are not on such highway networks. But they all have a need to serve the local population. And it's because of that that the report that we have nuanced as members working with our experts have identified different ways in which different market towns, the values of the car parking charges are changing across each market town. And if I sit here with my finance portfolio hat on, I would be delighted to say, let's drive significant sums of money to help support the council. But actually, that's not what we're here for. We're here to balance the books. We're here to balance the needs of people in the district. And in balancing those needs, we've taken a very, I believe, modest approach to how we can recover the costs of maintaining our car parks and providing those car parks. We've heard also the word free used extensively. Actually, the car parks are only free for those people who use them, because they don't have to pay to actually park their car. They're not free for every single resident of Brecon. But they are free for people who live in South Norfolk or elsewhere who come and use our car parks. They don't actually contribute to our council tax take in this district. And I think that's of fundamental importance to our market towns. Some of this debate was kicked off by towns such as Attleborough and Swaffham, who were pleading with us to try and improve the quality of the car parking in their towns, because the car parks were being blocked on a daily basis by people driving into the market town, parking their car, either catching a bus or a train and going somewhere else, or 3 or 4 people driving in and then getting into one car and heading off in a different direction. The drive to look at this particular process was not started initially by this council. It was started by the town councils I've just referred to. And that's proved successful. The results that we've taken forward have actually freed up and created the churn and enabled people to be able to drive in and park in those towns to undertake their business. So, summing up, as I might, with my finance hat on, this is going to make a significant difference to our budgetary position, because we can effectively release the thick end of £500,000 now. And as we move forward over time, I'm sure that inflation will kick in and we'll be looking at increasing sums. And if we can avoid doing that, to enable that money to be plowed back into our frontline services and the non-discretionary, the discretionary services that we provide, that's got to be good news. It really has. So for all those reasons that I've outlined, I will be supporting this particular proposal. It is in its early stages. It doesn't kick in straight away, as we've heard. There is a very long and arduous process that has to be followed, and Ralph has identified that. There are statutory procedures that we need to put in place before any of this can happen, not least, of course, the consultation. But I rather hope that when the public understand the drivers behind this proposal that we have before us, they will actually acknowledge that we're actually doing the right thing for all the people in the district at the right time. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Aswell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to be honest, the last 2 speakers, I'm a little bit confused. One of you seems to think the High Street, everything's rose in the garden. The other one says that we've got problems with, we haven't got enough spaces in the car park at certain times of the day. But on the other hand, you're saying that the town centres have been hit hard by COVID and we haven't recovered from that. The 2 can't both be the same. So my concern with what's being proposed here at the moment is the fact that you're making the decision that you haven't done any of the consultation with businesses and the specific town councils. This is a fait accompli. Let's be honest. You have not done that consultation. You could have consulted with local businesses and had detailed working group discussions with them on the effects and basically to try and, I suppose, impart properly what it is that you're trying to achieve, and they can also impart to you exactly what they think the effect was going to be on their businesses. Many of them, small businesses, are very hard pressed. I mean, the consultation, what struck me in the Parking Matters document was under 4.2 consultation. And I'll quote, it says, based on experience of similar projects within and for local authorities, we recommend the decision of whether to charge is a decision for elected members advised by their officers. The results of any consultation asking whether charges should be brought in will provide a predictable result. That, frankly, tells me everything I need to know about any forthcoming consultation. I do not understand how you can make this decision at the moment. I understand what you're saying about the council's finances, but I don't think enough account has been taken of the possible effects on business. You do not know that yet. I do not care what is in this study about desktop analysis of what's happened in other towns across the country. This is rural Breckland. As you quite rightly said, people in Breckland rely wholly on the motor car, predominantly, to get to their towns. I am really concerned about the effect of this can have on business. We heard at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission meeting last week that the consultation, and I think Ralph has alluded to that again this morning, it seems to be a technical consultation about traffic, car parking orders in consultation with the county council. There is not enough emphasis on the consultation with businesses. So we haven't consulted with businesses, we haven't consulted with the town councils at the moment. You've also said in this report that you expect in the first year that there will be a drop-off in usage in the car parks that eventually will bounce back, I think, in years 2 and 3. So if that's the case, if we have a drop-off in the usage in the car parks in the first year when this is implemented, what will the impact be on those local businesses? You have not taken account of that. You are taking account of the council's finances. You are not taking account of the finances of those very hard-pressed small businesses in our towns. Why are we putting the cart before the horse? Why haven't we consulted with them and made them feel like they're part of this process? So that's my big take on that. The next thing is the workers that work in those shops. And I said this at Overview Scrutiny the other day. If you're a shop worker in our towns, predominantly you are working on minimum wage. Most of the shop workers get paid minimum wage for the work that they do. This effectively will be a charge to them. I used the analysis and I will use it again. If you work full time in a shop in the town centre of Deering, but you park in the Cherry Tree car park, you will have to buy a ticket that will cost £3.20 for the day, 5 days a week. If you work 48 weeks of the year, taking account of their holidays, that works out £768. You're effectively going to take out the pockets of those hard-pressed employees who are predominantly earning minimum wage. You have not taken account of that. You have got nothing in this report that tells me what you talk about permits, but you haven't said how many permits. You don't know how many permits you need because you haven't talked to the businesses in the towns. Again, I ask why. Why haven't you done that? And also, I'd like to say, the pro forma figures, pro forma B figures, I alluded to this in the meeting over in Scrutiny last week. Let's be perfectly honest, that they don't really stand up to scrutiny, do they? Where exactly is the evidence? Show me the evidence that these figures in the expenditure and the income, just so happens they balance to the penny and cancel each other out. how have we arrived at these figures? Where can I see the evidence to show me those costs and how you've arrived at those? I would like to see that level of detail. I would like to see that level of detail and the opportunity for the Overview and Scrutiny Commission to have a meeting after the Cabinet has made its decision. What normally happens, we normally have Cabinet, then we have Overview and Scrutiny, scrutinise things and decide Overview and Scrutiny whether we decide we want to send something back to Cabinet in the future to reconsider. I haven't seen any of that evidence either. So that concerns me greatly. We were told, as Councillor Clark said in February, that we had a balanced budget. Now, apparently we don't have a balanced budget. And I have to say to all the members of the Conservative group here in this council, none of this was in your manifesto. None of this. And you said to the people in Breckland, when you were standing for election, you were going to introduce these charges. So again, I think that is a little bit, that doesn't sit comfortably with me. I'm sure it doesn't sit comfortably with a lot of other people. Come back to consultation is my main problem with this. I can see there are some merits in charging. I think there are some merits in car parks having free 1 hour parking. I'm disappointed that that's not been put into every car park in the towns. I noticed in Dereham, you decided not to introduce the free 1 hour in the Cherry Tree because that's the biggest cash cow, let's be honest. Have you done the analysis if you're using the 1 hour free parking in the Cape Road car park in Dereham? Is that suddenly going to be snarled up with everybody trying to get in and out of there and the Cherry Tree sits there half empty? Has any of that work been done? Consultation, work with businesses. I'm really disappointed we're putting the cart before the horse making this decision and you haven't done it without speaking to the people this is really going to affect. It's really going to affect small businesses.
Great. Ralph, I can show the consultation bit, Councillor Attall's questions you picked up earlier, and we'll come to Councillor Semic for those other areas, then we'll come to the 151 in relation to improve affordability and the financial position.
What about consultation with businesses? We do want to work with businesses and we do want to work with residents. That's why there is the consultation that's in place. We do have to spend some time and effort over the next period working out what the detail will be, particularly as we talked about in terms of the permit parking system. We haven't got to that detail as yet. We are recommended to make sure that people are discriminated as far as we possibly can by making sure people have the ability to park. So we do want to work with businesses to work out how many business permits can be offered, in what location, and what the value of that would be. And we would seek to do that through the consultation. So we would want to sort of work with those through the consultation piece to make sure that we can get that information, to make sure that we produce a system that works as fair as it can be and as much as it can be for all concerned.
Thank you. So just on some of those other points, with regards to the which bit comes and what first, with these decisions, it's really difficult to be able to, I think, to properly say how much information you have at what point of time, to be able to go to what committee, to be able to make a decision to come back to those. And I think it was really important the other day that we did the scrutiny meeting to be upfront, honest, to be able to see whereabouts it was the information came from, presented to Cabinet today so that we know what it is that we're looking at to charge on today. In an ideal world, we probably wouldn't have to be sitting here charging for car parks at all, but equally we wouldn't have vulnerable residents across the piece that we need to be looking to stand up some of those discretionary services to. So, like most people have said already this morning, I think we find ourselves in a situation where it's a difficult decision to make. It's a decision that we feel that we have to make, and we will do our utmost to consult with as many people as what we can, but this is not going to be something which we're going to be able to say is going to be something which everybody agrees with, and we're going to be able to box off what everybody's asks and demands are. We've got to make sure that we have got a balanced budget. That's what we as our place is to make sure we've got a balanced budget, and we will do what we can, like Councillor Howson said, in supporting those local businesses and those employees of those local businesses, who in turn largely are our residents who have elected us in to make some of these difficult decisions. I think going back to the consultation piece and the bit around businesses, we have proactively written to all members, to our town councils. We've also had letters which went out by the post. We used our ARP data to make sure we've got the most up-to-date information as what we could, to send 123 letters out to Walton businesses, 287 in Dereham, 179 in Swaffham, 131 in Attleborough, and 248 in Thetford. We're not going to not do anything with the information, what comes back from that. From the consultation, what Ralph has been talking about, we're not going to not do anything with that information when it comes in, but we don't know what that is not yet. So when we have them responses from those businesses, and what Paul's team picks up on those day-to-day conversations, what we have with those organisations, we will be doing something with that information. We're not going to be able to fix everybody's problems. We're not going to be able to do and meet the demands of everybody, but we will take that on board and we will make sure that we do this in the most palatable way possible, given in mind that it is a really difficult decision that we are asking to take. Thank you.
So the budget is balanced, and if we achieve our efficiency target, which is 1.6 million in future years. So there's still budget gap, and not all of those identified are set out in the pro forma B. The pro forma B is in its usual format. There's a lot of assumptions behind there on the costs and the income. And in order to get to the break-even point, which is the assumption on this, we model various different free periods, different car parks at different times, to come up with the one that came closest to the break-even, and that's what's presented in this one.
Thanks. Any further questions in relation to that as well?
Thank you, Chair. Good to hear the letters went out to local businesses. Could you tell me when they were posted out? And will all the responses be made available to all members of this council for us to see all those responses? Will they be publicly available so that we can see what the strength of feeling is from the businesses?
So in relation to responses, depending on what the ability to redact those are, because we'll have a requirement to do that for those names and addresses which submitted, and whether that be a public document, stand fast, but for the members, we will absolutely ensure that all of the consultation feedback we receive from residents, businesses, and any other interested parties and associates, which Ralph alluded to, will be made available to all members of this council. How we then format that from the public piece to make sure it's transparent, but making sure we're compliant with our data protection regulations. I don't know the answer to that, Councillor Maxwell, but we will make sure that that does occur.
They were received by businesses they were received by businesses last week.
Thank you for making my point for me. So the first of businesses knew about this was last week. Haven't really had a chance to give any kind of response or feedback prior to the open scrutiny meeting held last week, or this cabinet meeting held. And what we're going to do, if those overwhelming responses come back and they can demonstrate that there will be significant impact on their businesses, and that affects our business model. Say they come back and they need a more significant number of permits than we built into the cost that we have here. Is that a fait accompli? Are we saying that actually the overriding thing that in our decision making here is the council's budget and the small businesses' budgets be damned? Because that's what it feels like to me.
Okay, it's not a fait accompli. The decisions had to be considered today about making about this proposal, but it is not a fait accompli. The businesses haven't been asked prior to last week because the decision hadn't been made. There was nothing out there, or the proposal hadn't been made available before then. So they were consulted at the same time as everybody else. I can't remember your Will we amend? The point of the consultation is for us to be able to look at that. It's like I said a moment ago, we're not going to be able to address the needs and the demands of everything and everybody that comes back. We don't know how many permits we need, not yet, because we haven't had that information come back. Some people have been taking advantage of a system, of a regime, and they know that actually it's something what they may not need those parking spaces. Some of them will be asking for a certain amount. Businesses will be taking into their own consideration how they go about working with their employees to be able to do that. So all of that information, what we have come in, we will do something with that, which will help then inform the amount of permits and consideration for the next phase.
Thanks. Councillor Turner, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to speak with two hats on. First of all, as ward representative of 3 rural parishes, and a majority of people there have said, once we explain the system to them, they would rather pay a small charge and get a car parking space than going to a market town. There were several questions which Councillor Hewitt and I managed to answer between us. Then I speak with my hat on as a Watton resident. Now, I've seen one of the business letters. The business I was visiting read it out to me during my appointment, and the information was very clear. One of the young staff there said to me, I'd rather pay a bit more council tax. So then I had to go into the explanations of the process of doing that if you do it above so much, you have to have a referendum, etc., etc. And I tried to explain again the coin symbol that we use and what proportion Brecon gets. So once I'd explained it, she said, I think the businesses in Watton and possibly other market towns where you have appointments made, like dentists, hairdressers, etc., will benefit from this because it means they can actually offer more appointments because people have got somewhere to park. So that side too. But my plea to you as a ward member and a resident is the more information you just remind people about how little Brecon gets of the total council tax bill, what we have to do with that. People aren't daft. Lots of them do understand it. We just have to remind them again. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bowser. Back to Councillor Aswell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In response to what Councillor Turner just said, I do believe that the person she spoke to is very near to the top of the list of the petition that was signed as the petition that was subsequently being sent to Councillor Hewitt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Secretary, for the responses, and I know he asked me the questions, it's probably he's asked great before we did. But the issue that I have, and I come back to, is if you had done the consultation with businesses to this before we got to this point, that could have possibly have an effect on the funding model and the figures that were presented to us today in terms of permits, etc. What we have here is we're making a decision on facts and figures as they are today without that vital information, I would say, on the very people that this could affect the most. That was my big concern here, that we should have done this work prior, and I don't see any reason why we need to make a decision today. We can still do that consultation, get that evidence, and we may still come back to this point. We may very well come back to this point, but then we would have more accurate figures on which to make our decision, because we would know with more collated data what permits, etc., are actually needed in the car parks.
Thanks, Councillor. Just to try and attempt to clear up, and by all means, you and other members can come back. So you heard earlier from Councillor Suggett and Mr. Burton, we've been through this process before in relation to Swaffham and Ashmore. We've learned from how to deliver that effectively. So working with our consultants, actually, what we've attempted to do, you've seen that they have given us a document which they believe is the right thing to do for the Brecon numbers around charging from minute 1, consider disposal of some car parks. As members, as the Cabinet and the working group, they've smash that together, you have a different set of proposals where we are today. Very different, I believe, from what has been suggested from the consultants. We are now at a stage where we are going out to consult on our assumptions with residents and businesses. And Councillor Suggett has given you that assurance that through that feedback and the consultation process, this allows us the flexibility to amend and change the final implementation come 2025. So we've got to start somewhere. And I think the risk is, from what your suggestion is, that we would have a bucket full of numerous ideas, suggestions, and as Councillor Suggett said, we won't be able to please everybody. So we've gone from the experts' advice to where we think is a suitable solution, as you've heard, from a 100% cost recovery, but you have the assurance from the members and this cabinet, if it is voted today to go out to consult, that is not the definitive final model we will ultimately implement across Breckland. The consultation has a really important part to play, just as it did in Swaffham and Attleborough as we move forward. The challenges from yourself and Councillor Clark is you've sat around the table with myself, sometimes having opposition budget briefs, and independently with the Deputy Chief Executive and the 151 officer. I'm not privileged to what your conversations are, and that's right and proper. The conversations I have with Councillor Cowan is, we know the financial challenges we're beginning to face as we come down the road, and we haven't got the luxuries to generate further income from anything we do. All of our services, regardless of it's car park, CCTV, waste collection, leisure, whatever it is, has to ensure we are getting the best value for money and providing those statutory services to all residents in the most appropriate value. And sadly, car park, as you heard from Councillor Askew, has now come to the point that we have to have a conversation about it. And we are not going to get it right for everybody, but we have to do something. You'll have seen, and you challenged me before at full council around our downturn in our planning fee incomes and what that means for us to be able to deliver affordable homes. You challenged me around our increased numbers around temporary accommodation, what that means for a council. You'll be aware we've got the wage reform coming forward, and actually there's a deficit between that delivery. All of these ultimately are out of our control. We're trying to manage a very difficult situation. I haven't got the luxury of the Chief Executive of the NHS where I can go back to government and say, I can't do a balanced budget, give you some more money. We have to legally deliver a balanced budget. We have a balanced budget for this year, and you've heard from the 151 what our financial deficit is as we move forward. This is just one of those activities where we need to attempt to try and achieve 100% cost recovery. Now, if we were in comparison to my nearest neighbour of other councils, I'm about £20 short of what they get from a bandy council, from a council house. We are a low tax council. In one regard, that's a great soundbite. In other regards, that causes me and my members a big set of challenges. And I hope that you and other members across the council over these coming weeks and months will work with Councillor Suggett and Councillor Hewitt to make sure that feedback as it arises in the consultation derives the best suitable solution for residents and businesses, whilst ensuring you're supporting me in this council with delivering a balanced budget. I look forward to working with you both and Councillor Cowan as to how we can increase that gold programme position, rather than saying actually let's not do something, how you can work with us to achieve those further savings you know we need to make.
Thank you for that. And yes, I do fully understand the need to have a balanced budget. In terms of the consultation that's going to take place, could I ask then, if we are going to consult with businesses, public, town councils, etc., there will be some kind of public consultation documentation that we will be producing to collate all those responses. We won't just be sending out a letter saying, let us know what you think. We're going to be asking, tabulating specific questions and garnering, responses from that. Would you agree, if that is the case, to bring that to an overview and scrutiny commission meeting to look at that documentation and what you're going to consult on prior to that going out? I think that would be welcome.
I think, like I did say earlier on, as the process goes forward and we do get the information come in, I'm more than happy to come at the request of the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission with the information that we do have and we do receive. We'll obviously have to try and work that in when it comes in, when the consultation ends and the programme of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. There are some legal requirements around some stuff that we have to ask within part of that consultation, and we need to be mindful that we don't start setting hairs running and we set expectations too high on some of the wider parameters, what you're now asking. We can look to start to see around some more bespoke questions in that and marry that up with the legal requirements that we have to ask for within that, but be manageable about the information that we have come back, that it's something what we are able to do to process, and we will bring back to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ashwell. So in relation to our timescale, obviously we're taking this, if Cabinet agree, its next stage, some of those recommendations with full council to release some of that capital. You've seen from the time frame, the public consultation will be undertaken in October, November of this year. I'm looking to officers and Councillor Suggett, I don't wish to bounce any of them. If the chairman of the commission is willing to stand up a meeting in early September, I'm comfortable that those questions which will be put into residents and businesses is presented to that, and as long as it's an appropriate data capture which will help us to inform the right outcome to ensure that we get a balanced budget, that comes forward to the commission in early September. And therefore all members of the council have the opportunity to see the questions, how we're going to receive them, what sort of data depository that will go in, and how once the consultation concludes, what that will then look like. I don't think that's an unreasonable position, and I know that Councillor Suggett and Councillor Hewitt are going to do something similar anyway, but as you asked formally here, I will state my agreement, and obviously the body agreement to that, but it's down to the chairman of the commission, not to me.
Thank you.
So thank you, Chairman. Kate advise you there's already scheduled a scrutiny committee in the afternoon on the 5th of September. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was your agreed statement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. On reflecting on what Sarah said earlier about the data and how important that is, I think we know what the responses are going to be. We don't like it, we don't want it, and if it's anything like what's on social media at the moment, it's totally ill-informed, because it's saying that all of these charges are absolutely punitive. And I don't think £3 a day is punitive. I don't think anybody would think that. And I think we also have to look at this, if we are looking at this, it needs to be looking at the data, and we have to reflect on what's happening everywhere. And I do think that the consultants, when they inform us, they will inform us of the right councils. Thank you. That's all my point.
Are there any other questions or comments in relation to this item? So just before I ask Councillor Suggett to move the recommendation, just in confirmation, this is not a decision that we are going to start car park charging. This is us giving agreement, as laid down in the recommendations, to start the timeline for consultation and in relation to financial capital position, and to recommend on to council those other areas. We are absolutely, as Councillor Suggett said today, and at the Commission with Councillor Hewitt on Thursday, going to ensure that FAQs on our website is continuously updated to reflect some of that feedback coming in. We'll send a hyperlink on that website in relation to your request, Councillor Clark, so that people have access to the cabinet minutes, the cabinet agenda from today to see that. We will put a health board in relation to your response on Thursday, Councillor Attwell, that actually the document was the initial consultants' views and opinions, but that we have taken some extracts from that to bastardise that to what we assume is the right thing to go out and consult on. And we'll also update our wider budget position website to give an understanding of what money we get in, how we spend it, how we allocate it, both revenue and capital, to give further clarity as to how the council undertakes its finances, which you asked on Thursday and today as well. So if there are no other further questions or comments, Councillor.
Thank you. I would like to recommend this morning, following a review of the council's car parking strategy, the recommendations are to implement a change to the council's car parking policy to a charging model, to delegate authority to the deputy leader or chief or executive member and the chief executive to implement the required operating model and necessary changes to the council's car parking orders to meet the policy change requirements, to add up to £32,000 to the capital budgets to undertake initial detailed design and technical preparation work, and to recommend to council to release the remaining required funds and amend the capital and revenue budgets to deliver the policy change outlined in the Performer B Appendix C. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. So you got those 4 recommendations, 3 for us, 1 on 2. Council, I'll take them as a block. All those in favour? Thank you. They are carried. So we'll move on to the next item, which is item 9, the Brecon Strategic Infrastructure Plan. Councillor Fowler, present, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. That's all the point sheet there is. I was going to read the recommendation. Right, so today the recommendation is that Cabinet agrees to adopt the Brecon Strategic Infrastructure Plan, the BSIP, and that it is updated annually. So thank you, Chairman. So as a council, we play a prominent role in supporting the delivery of key infrastructure, and that benefits both residents and businesses. We work with our partners to go above and beyond what a district council is expected to do and to drive development. We do not restrict our ambition. Today, I present a document that hopefully starts to articulate this ambition and draws together a list of projects that will drive economic growth. The Brecon Strategic Infrastructure Plan, at the moment it is going to be called the BSIP, so well, I hope we will always call it the Brecon Strategic Infrastructure Plan in full. And it compiles the key infrastructure requirements for the district into a single document. This has a number of benefits. It will help to guide funders, it will demonstrate ambition, and it will help to define our relationship in this space with Norfolk County Council and other partners. Now, there's no legal requirement for us to do this. However, we've come to realise that rather than doing this work in isolation through separate documents, members should note that we already do a version of this work annually, where we help to populate Norfolk Strategic Infrastructure Development Plan. The Brecon Strategic Infrastructure Plan is essentially a Brecon-specific version of the Norfolk Plan and aligns strongly with it. However, it also reflects other documents, such as the Future Brecon Plan, Active Transit Plan, and Network Improvement Studies. This document will work alongside and complement the emerging local plan and will be more adaptable and can be updated regularly to reflect the changing infrastructure landscape. It can also go beyond what can be contained within the confines of the current local plan process. Now, I've challenged officers to be ambitious with the project that they've included, but also realistic. I believe we've struck the balance here. Some of the items included are yet to be fully scoped and tested, but still have a reasonable prospect of occurring. Others are more fully formed, and all will deliver huge benefits to our businesses, our residents and businesses. This is the start of a process for me, and I hope that we will begin a process of regular review, and I hope members will input, challenge and shape this document going forward.
Thanks, Paul. Mr. Scanlon, anything from you?
No, thank you.
No? Good, thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Kyler, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 17, which is in my forest wall, Thetford Primary Substation, suggests here that's at the feasibility stage, whereas in fact the ducts have been laid all the way from Barnum to the substation and the transformers are in position. So I suggest that if this is to be updated annually, that be updated now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Atwell. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much welcome this document. I think it's a very useful document. I just want to say I'm also immensely pleased to see that the Deer and Northern Bypass and the road improvements to Swanmore for any possible future development of Ross Barracks are included in this document. Both things I championed. Certainly the Deer and Bypass, Northern Bypass idea would, I believe, dramatically help those residents and car users from villages north of Deer who struggle to get access to the A47 at the moment, where they're having to run through villages at home and working to basically get to the A47. So I welcome this, it's a good piece of work, and I'm glad that will be complementing the local plan review. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there are lots of worthwhile, very ambitious areas in here in the plan, and I think the phrase in there throughout that they've got a reasonable prospect of occurring. I very much hope so. Whilst this is a collation of different projects, it'd be very helpful to have those in a sense in one table as a timeline, and just as we look at in other forums, looking at things like the performance indicators, whether we're on target, how far things are going to be delivered. Obviously, some of these are going to be long term, but I know obviously all of those areas are not insignificant sums, you know, such as 6 areas in Durham, sustainable travel, looking at figures between 20,000 up to say 26 million around Durham, talking about pedestrianisation of the marketplace, which is also linked to car parking, shopping and so forth. So it'd be interesting to see sort of ranking of those areas in a time scale where we've got like a red, amber, green, you know, going forward. Thank you.
So yes, that's sort of totally agree with this. It's presentation is something you want to kind of continue to define, and I think that kind of tabular format here would be some quite easy to contact. Years ago, I also worked with colleagues that were coming out to create a more sort of external user-friendly version of this. We zoom in on maps to see where some of the infrastructure is. I thought we could develop questions today.
Thank you. Further questions or comments in relation to this piece of work? No?
Move the recommendation, actually.
Thank you very much. The recommendation has been presented by Councillor Clausen. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Carried. So that formally concludes today's special cabinet meeting on Monday the 15th of July. Just wish to apologise to anybody watching live on YouTube or following this around sort of the connection and IT glitches we had earlier today. So item 11 then, the date of the next meeting is Monday the 23rd of September 2024 at 9:30 here in the Aggie Room at Brecon Council. Thank you very much.